Marcus stopped dead in the doorway. Eleanor's hand slipped on the wet marble, the pitcher tilting as she stumbled backward. It hit the floor first, glass shattering, water spreading like veins across the tile. Then Eleanor fell, her silver hair fanning out as she hit the ground with a dull thud. "Mom!" Marcus's voice broke, raw and disbelieving. Vanessa didn't move. She just stood there in her silk robe, face unreadable, one hand still poised mid-her as if the act hadn't happened. Behind her, the boys knelt by the bathtub, small, shivering silhouettes. Eleanor groaned softly, trying to push herself up, but the water spread beneath her, mixing with the reflection of the bathroom's harsh light. Marcus stepped forward, every muscle trembling, his hand braced on the doorframe, frozen between rage and shock. And in that moment, everything Marcus believed about his life shattered. The woman he trusted with his heart, his home, his family, wasn't who she pretended to be. This is a story about what happens when trust becomes a weapon, when the person sleeping beside you turns into your greatest threat, and how far one father went to protect the people who mattered most. But before that night, everything seemed perfect. In the quiet luxury of a mansion overlooking the Hudson River, Marcus thought he'd rebuilt his life. His new wife brought laughter back into rooms that had been silent too long. His mother smiled more. His sons seemed happy. But behind those soft words and tender gestures, something dark was growing, a betrayal so cruel and calculated, it would destroy everything he thought he knew about love, loyalty, and family. Before we go any further, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We love hearing from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss what happens next. Marcus built his fortune from nothing. Started with one delivery truck and turned it into a logistics empire that employed hundreds. He knew what loyalty meant, what sacrifice cost. When his first wife Sarah died in a car accident 4 years ago, leaving him alone with 2 young sons, he learned what real loss felt like. The kind that rewires your entire world. For 3 years after, Marcus became everything to Jake and Noah. Father, mother, homework helper, bedtime story reader. His own mother, Eleanor, moved in to help keep the house running. The boys called her Nana, and she became their anchor. Breakfast every morning, homework every evening. The same lullabies she'd sung to Marcus when he was small. But grief gives way to loneliness eventually. When Marcus met Vanessa Collier at a charity event 18 months ago, something woke up inside him that he thought had died with Sarah. Vanessa was different, graceful, warm. She listened when he talked about his late wife, never jealous, never impatient. She seemed to understand that Sarah would always be part of him. 6 months later, they married in a quiet ceremony by the lake. Everyone told Marcus he deserved to be happy again, but nobody thought to ask what Vanessa wanted. Nobody wondered why a woman with no history, no real past, would choose a widower with 2 grieving sons and a mother-in-law living under the same roof. Nobody asked the hard questions, and that was the point. That first year felt like redemption. Vanessa slipped into their lives without forcing anything, never trying to replace Sarah, but finding her own place among them. She showed up at Jake's soccer games, cheering from the sidelines. She sat with Noah through his art projects, her hands covered in paint and glue. She even tried to master Eleanor's apple pie recipe, laughing at herself when the crust kept coming out wrong. Marcus would come home exhausted from 14-hour days to find his family in the kitchen together, flour dusting someone's shirt, music playing low. Those moments made the stress worthwhile. The endless meetings, the difficult clients, the weight of keeping his company afloat. He had something real to come home to now, someone who made the empty spaces feel full again. Eleanor started to relax for the first time since Sarah's death. She'd sit with Vanessa in the garden during warm afternoons, talking about books, sharing stories about Marcus as a boy. Nana would laugh at Vanessa's impressions of Marcus burning breakfast on weekends. Vanessa would listen, really listen, when Eleanor talked about her late husband, about the loneliness of losing someone you've known for 40 years. The boys healed in small ways. Jake, who'd become so quiet and serious after his mother died, started smiling again. He'd bring Vanessa his science projects, his face lighting up when she asked questions that showed she actually cared about the answers. Noah, the younger one who still cried for his mom some nights, started going to Vanessa when bad dreams woke him up. She'd sit with him in the dark, rubbing circles on his back until sleep came. Marcus watched it all happen and felt hope for the first time in years. Real hope, the kind that makes you think about the future, instead of just getting through today. Maybe they'd take that trip to Italy he'd always promised Sarah. Maybe he'd step back from work, spend more time at home. Maybe his family could be whole again, even if it looked different than before. What he didn't see were the cracks in the performance. The way Vanessa's smile dissolved the second he walked out a door. The phone calls she took in whispers behind closed doors. How eager she was to stay home with Nana and the boys whenever Marcus traveled, insisting she wanted more time to bond with them. He missed it all because he wasn't looking. When you trust someone completely, you don't search for reasons not to. You don't question. You don't doubt. And Vanessa had counted on exactly that. The changes came slowly enough that Marcus could explain them away. Eleanor started mentioning headaches at breakfast, dizziness in the afternoons. She'd wave off his concern, saying she was 72 and bodies get tired. These things happen when you get old. Then the boys started getting sick. Nothing alarming at first. Stomach bugs that kept them home from school. Marcus noticed it happened more when he traveled, but Vanessa always sent updates. Noah's running a fever. Jake threw up after dinner. Don't worry, I've got it handled. He'd call from airport, terminals, and hotel rooms, hearing his son's weak voices, feeling guilt settle heavy in his chest for not being there. Vanessa was always there, always managing everything. Doctor visits, prescriptions, late nights. Marcus felt grateful he'd married someone who showed up when things got hard. But if he'd paid closer attention, he might have noticed the pattern. The boys only got sick after eating meals Vanessa prepared alone. Eleanor's dizziness always seemed worse after drinking that special herbal tea Vanessa made for her. The boys' behavior shifted too, more subtle than the sickness. Jake withdrew again, all that progress reversing. He stopped mentioning school, stopped showing Vanessa his projects. When Marcus asked if something was wrong, Jake just said he was tired. Noah's nightmares got worse, but he stopped going to Vanessa. He'd cry quietly in his room until Nana heard and came to sit with him. Marcus told himself it was a phase, growing pains, the grief catching up to them. He didn't see the fear his sons carried when he wasn't around, didn't notice how quiet they'd become in Vanessa's presence. Everything broke open on a Tuesday night in late September. Marcus had been at a conference in Chicago, scheduled to return Thursday. When a critical meeting got canceled, he decided to surprise everyone by coming home early. He didn't call first. He wanted to see their faces light up when he walked through the door. He got home just after 8. The house sat quiet except for a television murmuring somewhere upstairs. He set his luggage down and headed for the kitchen, expecting to find them finishing dinner. But the kitchen was dark, breakfast dishes still piled in the sink. Then he heard it. A child crying. Not the everyday sound of a scraped knee or broken toy. The kind of crying that comes from somewhere deeper. Fear. Pain. Marcus took the stairs fast, following the sound to the boys' bathroom. The door stood slightly open, and what he saw through that gap burned itself into his brain forever.